I am, standing on the edge of a tailgate airplane, 18,000 feet in the sky. I can see the roads etched into the landscape for miles, and cornfields mazing off into the distance. I have on my skydiving jumpsuit, my parachute, altimeter, and my favorite pink skydiving helmet. We rehearse our part of the skydive. And in the airplane, I let no one's movements take away my focus because we have a job to do. We have a world record skydive to build. I am the daughter of a pioneering skydiver.
I saw a sport that I really loved, and I saw it going nowhere, getting stagnant, and I felt that the only way it was going to change is if someone got up and did something. So I first started organizing national conventions of relative workers, which is a term for free fallers that fly with groups of people.
I grew up with the sound of radial engines overhead, colorful parachutes blossoming in the skies, and hearing stories of my grandfather's jumping days in the 82nd Airborne. The happiest people you've ever met congregated from around the world on the drop zone. They practiced for their jumps, and there was always a sense of adventure in the air. And then there was me, the curly hair, blue-eyed drop zone kid who made her first skydive at the age of 5. I remember I had to be very creative with my time growing up on the drop zone while the adults were out hurling themselves out of airplanes. So I would go out to the landing area and would draw pictures of the skydivers. I would create little makeshift shops where the jumpers would pack their parachutes and sell my pictures to them. I also insisted when I played with kids my age that we would play business and we would set up little shops and draw MasterCard logos and staple plastic over it to make our own credit cards. I am also the daughter of an international drug smuggler. I wasn't privy to my dad's escapades as a child, but I knew. And I was sworn to secrecy about anything I saw or heard. I remember getting pulled over in the family car one night, and my dad looked back with his crystal blue eyes, nose flaring. "Don't you say a word!" That struck a rush of adrenaline in my heart, and I started to feel afraid. When I was 8 years old, we traveled back from Florida in our family RV. Again, pulled over, but this time the cops swarmed in like a SWAT team, breaking everything apart. The cupboards were flying open, cushions were flying, or things smashed to the ground. The cop escorted me out. It was like a landmine. I was holding back tears. And when I got out of the RV, I watched the cops handcuff my father and put him back in the squad car. They escorted me to another police car, and as I sat there, I knew not to say a word. I became stuck between two worlds, one where I was building an emotional wall to the rest of life, feeling this unexplainable darkness and heaviness, trying to wrap my young little mind around the mystery, secrecy, and lies. And this other world of skydiving, which seems so carefree and fun. So it became so important for me to recognize and appreciate the light and joy my dad brought in other people's lives. He created legendary skydiving events. He pioneered technology, which is today's industry standard in our sport. He also inspired and challenged skydivers to become national champions and world record holders. My father went through what seemed like years of indictment. And my mother, my dear, sweet, smart, and savvy mother, did the best she could to create some normalcy in our lives. She brought me to friends' houses instead of dragging me to courtrooms. She kept me in the same house and the same school growing up. Her efforts prevailed keeping me out of the media, but the media had a frenzy disgracing my father and his escapades. My father was sentenced to federal prison on the eve of my junior high school years. I was just 11 years old. And in school, I wasn't the cool kid whose dad was a skydiver. Back then, skydiving was not mainstream and it was not cool. It was very much an outcast sport. Instead, I was the daughter of a convicted felon. When my dad went away, all of a sudden, the mystery, the lies, and the action were gone. It was like going to a rock concert, dancing your heart out, getting lost in the energy of the music, and then leaving. And then all of a sudden, you're like struck by silence. But your body still vibrates, and your ears still ring. As much as I wanted those lies and mystery to go away, I had a hard time coping with the quietness, wondering what to do and who I was. My father was released from federal prison when I was 16 years old, and he did the one thing that he was super passionate about, legally: skydiving. When I came home from school one day, my dad asked if I wanted to make my first solo skydive, and I said, sure. That first skydive was amazing. It wasn't technically my first, but my first solo. And I was wholeheartedly immersed. It was the first time I was outside of my head, and I felt free and alive. And although falling at the earth 120 miles an hour, my mind was quiet, and I was wholeheartedly immersed in those few seconds of free fall. I wasn't so sure if skydiving was a lifestyle for me, but I went to a skydiving event a few years later, and I remember having a blast jumping with the locals, hanging out at the bonfire, telling our big fish kind of skydiving stories, and at the end, the owner handed me a couple $100 bills. I was 19. I was like, what's this for? And he goes, thank you so much for working hard and making my event awesome. My eyes widened, and I knew I was not going to college. Over time, I was able to create a lifestyle for myself, traveling around the world as a guest athlete, teaching, training, competing. But I wanted more. So I set my sights on organizing a women's vertical world record with a few good girlfriends. We started assembling the team, creating the logistics and engineering of the skydive, and just a few months into that venture, my dad had a skydiving accident and died. In an instant, my life was over. I was plagued with these thoughts of, who is going to walk me down the aisle? I never wanted to get married, but it was something that was just instantly ripped away from me. My friends asked me, do you still want to continue on with this project? And without hesitation, I said yes. And before I knew it, we arrived to the blue skies of the Arizona desert. And all we had to do was complete a formation of more than 4 women. We suited up, we boarded the plane, and we were taking off into the skies. We went up with an 8-way formation, and on our first attempt, we got it. We went up again for a 10-way formation, and we got it. With 12, we got it. With 14, we got it. And then we started struggling with the 16-way formation. I remember sitting in the airplane, looking out at the window at the world below, just getting lost in my thoughts. And the hairs pricked up on my skin, and my blood ran cold because I could hear my dad's voice as clear as day in my head. Good job, honey. You got this. We jumped out, and I could see the formation starting to come together. Before you knew it, I can see the smiles on everybody's face and everybody was nodding. And you can feel this electric current go through this formation, and I knew we got it. When we got down, the judges announced we had done 5 world records in 2 days. This moment of accomplishing history started to help me figure out who I was and start to heal from the pain of my past and losing my dad. It helped me realize that I could dream of something so big and make it a reality. And it helped me find a confidence I never knew I had. And it helped me open the door to possibilities that I can create anything. Now I'm 41 and I have 23 world records, and I have more to come. Thank you. More to come because it's still a magic I chase, because it makes me feel alive and whole. I never knew those nights when my father was gone, if he'd show up dead or alive, wondering if I could ever tell the truth about who I was, or if I'd be shackled by fear, looking over my shoulder for the rest of my life, would lead me to becoming a leader in the skydiving industry. And I didn't stop there. I became a yoga instructor and opened up my own yoga studio, yin and yang. I also became a pilot. I published 3 books. I became a wife and a mother. And now I'm an integral part of my community, giving back, sharing my experiences as a business owner and entrepreneur. I am a drug smuggler's daughter who created light from darkness.